Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
I got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo.
Amateur Traveler, episode 651. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about Norman palaces, Greek temples, Roman mosaics, a volcano, an acropolis, and beaches as we go to the island of Sicily in Italy. Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Let's talk about Sicily. I'd like to welcome to the show Barbara Riedel, who is coming to us from barbalicious.com and has come to talk to us about Sicily. Barbara, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me.
And what's your connection with Sicily?
Well, my mother is Sicilian. She was born in Palermo and spent her first 20 years there. So Sicily has always been the home of my heart, and I always felt a huge connection to Sicily. And since I grew up in Germany, where my father is from, with my whole family, we went to Sicily a lot on vacation when I was young. My mother never wanted to go anywhere else than back home on vacation. So yeah, I think I know Sicily quite well, and I've been there I can't even count how many times I've been there, and I just love it.
Excellent. Well, and we should say that you are a blogger, obviously, since we gave the URL for your blog, which is in both German and English, which props for that. For those of us who don't ever get that good in a second language, I appreciate that. So
Thanks.
Why should someone go to Sicily?
It's a very unique place. During the last 3,000 years, actually, Sicily has always been a melting pot. People from everywhere around Europe and even Africa came there and tried to proclaim it theirs. So many, many nationalities have been there and have left traces. It's very different from mainland Italy, from the rest of Italy, obviously. And also different from Sardinia, for example, the other big island in Italy. And it's also very different from all the other countries around Europe. That's making it very special.
Excellent. And what itinerary would you recommend?
Well, I guess you would start in Palermo because that's the capital of Sicily with the biggest airport. There is another airport in Catania. You could fly into there too, or you could fly into Rome and then take a train, for example. But you would probably start in Palermo because that's the main capital. Then I would recommend you to drive down to Mazzara del Vallo. It's a super cute small town by the beach. And then from there, drive to Agrigento, where you have some amazing ancient temples from the Greek. Italy, and especially Sicily, has been part of the so-called
Magna
Grecia.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, larger Greece. The Greek trading cities, for instance, where a lot of those were built as. Oh, I'm the history buff, so yes.
Yeah, but still, I don't know, European history, maybe not your focus. So yeah, it's been part of the Magna Grecia, and you can still see and feel the influence of the ancient Greek. So I would definitely recommend to go to Agrigento and check out those temples. They are just amazing. And I think they're actually the best preserved ones from the Magna Grecia in general.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, drive to Siracusa. You also have temples. It's a really interesting vibe in the city. From there to Catania, which is kind of the enemies of Palermo.
Traditionally, not today.
Obviously, they're always fans of just one city. Also in football, for example,
Okay.
you have either fans of Palermo or Catania. But check it out. Since my mother is from Palermo, I have to be like for Palermo, and I prefer Palermo. But check out Catania. It's really beautiful. It's like a little bit medieval and beautiful churches, and also a nice vibe. And from there, the Etna is really close. It's the biggest volcano, the largest volcano in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still active. So if you get lucky and you stay somewhere close where you can see it, at night you can even see some lava coming out of the volcano. It's really, really beautiful.
Okay.
From there, I would recommend to go to Taormina. It's a little bit touristy. It's a town on a hill. It's super romantic. It's beautiful. They also have an ancient theater, and I can absolutely recommend to go there. It's really, really beautiful. From there, Piazza Armerina is not very far. It's an ancient Roman villa with mosaics. It's amazing. And the whole villa was full of mosaics.
Okay.
And from there, the last stop would be Cefalù, which is an old fisher town. It's by the beach. And if you want to relax on the last day by the beach and have some amazing fish with a sea view, this is the place to be. And you also can go hiking. There's the Rocca di Cefalù, which means the rock of Cefalù. So it's a little bit of a nature experience there. And from there, it's just like 100 kilometers back to Palermo.
Oh, you say 100 kilometers.
It's less. It's 60 maybe.
I think it's like 30.
30. It's just 30. It's 1 hour. So maybe it's okay.
At least I'm looking at the map, and that's what it looks like, unless I'm looking at the wrong place. So, and this whole itinerary is how long?
It's 1 week.
1 week, okay. And then go back and then do that in a little more detail. We're in Palermo. What are we going to see in Palermo?
Okay, Palermo has an amazing old town, so you should check out the cathedral. You can walk from there to the Palazzo dei Normanni. Sicily has actually been a kingdom in the 11th, 12th century, and the Palazzo dei Normanni has been their residence.
And when you say Normanni, not just a kingdom, but a kingdom, oddly enough, of the Normans from northern France. And so Normanni, the Palazzo of the Normans. This is not where you would expect to find the Normans who invaded England, but they also invaded Sicily.
Exactly. That's what I meant when I said that so many people have invaded Sicily and wanted to make it theirs. And also people that you would never expect there. And they left their traces, which is why, for example, that in Sicily, you have the most people with blonde hair and blue eyes all over Italy. You will never find that many people with like also light skin, for example, as in Sicily.
I didn't realize Sicily was that way. Lombardy is the same way because the Lombards, like the Normans, are Vikings, or at least the descendants of Vikings. So I didn't realize Sicily, that is not my picture. Huh.
Yeah. So very often when I'm talking to people and telling them that I'm half Italian, they're like, oh, really? Yeah, you look a little bit Italian, but you're blonde and have blue eyes. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm from Sicily, actually. And they go, yeah, that's why. Okay, I understand. People know that and like, okay, you're from Sicily, then it makes sense that you have blue eyes. Although it's not 100% true, in my case at least, because I have my blue eyes from my father who's German.
I took you off track. You took us to the Piazza dei Normanni.
Yeah, Palazzo, not Piazza.
Palazzo, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Which has been the residence of the Prince of Palermo. I think, was there a king?
There was the Kingdom of Sicily, and I think this was the capital of the Kingdom of Sicily, so there would have been a king in some time period. Actually, for a long time, from like the 1100s to the 1800s.
Yeah, the Palazzo dei Normanni is a really beautiful palace, and in there, for example, you can visit the Cappella Palatina, which is a really nice chapel where that was like the private chapel of the prince or king, and it's full of gold. It's made out of gold leaf, the whole chapel, and mosaics also, gold mosaics. It's really beautiful. And if you like that chapel, you should also take a bus or a rental car and get a little bit out of Palermo to a place called Monreale. It's still Palermo, but like a little suburb in the mountains, which has a dome, Duomo di Monreale. And you not only have the most amazing view on Palermo and the sea from up there. When you go behind the dome, there's a little garden, and that leads to a viewing platform from where you have this amazing view. But you can also go inside and see that it's exactly the same as the Cappella Palatina, just in big. I can't remember now which one was first. I think the Duomo di Monreale is a replica of the Cappella Palatina, and they just wanted to make it bigger.
And I'm trying to parse Monreale, and I want to say that we're talking about Mountain of the King?
Yes.
Okay. Is this another palace then, or?
No, it's a dome.
Okay.
It's a cathedral.
Well, the cathedral is. I was just wondering if in Monreale there was another, traditionally a palace. Okay.
Maybe there has been one a few hundred years back, but nowadays I don't know of any.
Okay.
And there's also this courtyard between the viewpoint and the cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super beautiful with lots of shade. So when you go there in summer and it's hot, because Sicily is in the south of Europe, so it gets very hot in summer. It's a really beautiful escape from the heat of the day.
And you bring up whether is summer when you would recommend for us to go to Sicily, or is there a better time?
Absolutely depends on what kind of weather you like. I love the heat. I really like heat. So for me, I can be there in August and I just love it. But it really means that it's almost 40 degrees every day and sometimes even hotter. So
around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay.
My parents actually got married in the Cappella Palatina that I was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I was 9 years old by then. So I remember that day, and it was one of the hottest days of summer in 20 years or so. It was 47 degrees. Maybe you can translate again to Fahrenheit.
Yeah, 47 is really too dang hot.
Yes. And I think it was in July 20 years back. That's how hot it can get in Sicily.
Yeah, that's 116 in Fahrenheit. Yeah, too dang hot, I think is really the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So if you already know that everything above, let's say 30 degrees is too much for you, then you should aim for maybe late spring or early autumn, for example. Like May, June is pretty nice weather, and October also. I mean, you can be lucky or unlucky at any time, and the weather is a bit crazy in Europe in general at the moment. So, for example, I think in the last 7 years, every year on Christmas, people could still bathe in the sea, and that wasn't possible like 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
But at the moment, it's still pretty hot in December, and it's still 20, 25 degrees. November, for example, is a bit a rainy month. So, I mean, there are people who like that. If you like to have it a little bit more cold and moody, then go for November.
Okay. Other things we want to see in Palermo before we move on with your itinerary?
Yes. I still think the markets are very much worth checking them out. And it's not only about the food itself, although many people love Sicilian food because it's so special with the influence from the Arabs, for example, also from the Spanish, and definitely Italian food itself. Also, the atmosphere on a Sicilian market is very special, and you should definitely go and check it out once at least.
And when you say Sicilian food, is there a dish that would be traditionally Sicilian or dishes that would be sort of signature dishes for either for Palermo or for Sicily?
There is a lot with eggplant in Sicily.
Okay.
Also honey, for example. They put a lot of honey in almost everything. So everything has like a sweet note to it.
Okay.
Eggplant with parmesan, for example,
Mm-hmm.
is very famous. Seafood and fish in general is super
Sure. Yeah,
famous.
makes sense.
And pane alla milza, I think it's spleen. So bread with spleen is something very Palermitan. So if you're into stuff like this, I'm vegetarian. So
It's quite possible that would turn me vegetarian as well. So
and also the smell is very special. So even if you don't want to try, just to smell it. And there's a very famous restaurant close to the old town that almost only serves pane alla milza.
okay, well, check out the links in the show notes, those of you who are listening, and we'll put a link to that restaurant later on. Excellent. What else?
If you like the sea, which I hope you do, because Sicily is just
Otherwise, we've gone to the wrong place.
yes, exactly. The coast of Sicily is amazing. I would recommend from Palermo to go to a town called Mondello.
Mm-hmm.
It's a half an hour bus ride or 20 minutes by car, more or less. You can wander the promenade there. It's about 2, maybe 3 kilometers. You can eat ice cream, watch the people. You can swim, obviously, have a swim. If you're lucky and there's a little bit of wind, you could also kite surf there. I've seen kite surfers, but my favorite thing to do there is have a stroll along the whole promenade because it's so beautiful. And there is a rock on the other side of the bay.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Monte Pellegrino, so the Pilgrim's Mountain.
Okay. Well, those of you who are watching the iTunes enhanced version will be looking at a photo that she's talking about right now. So
this is an insider. So if you can't see a photo in iTunes or whatever, just Google Monte Pellegrino, Mondello. Only a few people know about this. I'm serious. So if you have a close look at this mountain, it looks like a sleeping dog. On the left side, you can see the face of the dog lying on the front paws, and then the main part of the rock is the back of the dog, and on the right side of the rock you see the tail that is like lying next to the back paws. So I'm pretty sure if you have the picture in front of you, you will see that, and it's honestly a real insider.
okay.
You're part of it now.
Now, Palermo itself is also on the coast, but you've taken us to Mondello because it's more of a little small town along the coast.
Yes, and you have the beach there, so you can relax at the beach in the sand. It's a real sandy beach. There are many sandy beaches, but around Palermo there are also many beaches with rocks. And in Palermo itself, there is no beach at all. I think I don't know of any.
Okay.
Maybe there is a little part where you could call a beach, but there's a big port. And there are some smaller marinas, but there's no real part where you can have a swim or relax by the beach or so. There's a park close to one of the marinas. There's a little park where you could maybe, I don't know, put a towel on the grass and relax. But there are people, but they're maybe having a picnic.
Okay. Well, we need to move along here. We have a limited time, so after Palermo, you took us to some place that I don't remember.
Yeah, it's called Mazzara del Vallo.
Okay.
There's not that much to say about this little town. I'm just absolutely in love with it. When I was in Palermo 2.5 years ago, I stayed there for 6 weeks because I had some family stuff to take care of. And almost every day I did a short trip because I was vlogging during that time. I made one video and wanted to show my followers one video every day and wanted to show my followers some amazing spots around Palermo. So one day I took a bus, and it's, I think, almost 2 hours by bus from Palermo to Mazzara del Vallo. And it's a very, very beautiful small town
on the coast or in the mount? Oh, it's on the coast.
I'm a huge fan of the sea, so with me, you will always be close to the sea. Yeah, the old town is absolutely beautiful with
It's a fishing village, is my impression.
maybe a former fishing village.
Okay.
I don't think it's still a fishing village.
I was seeing they call it a fishing center.
Okay. The important part is the old town, I think. Just have a stroll and around it, and the churches are beautiful. There's
Okay. Are there particular churches or a particular neighborhood we're strolling? We don't want people just wandering off and getting lost necessarily if we can give them some more direction.
there's one church which is actually a ruin. So it's not a church anymore, which absolutely amazed me. And I almost missed it.
So it looks like that might be the ruins of the Church of San Ignacio, the Jesuit Church of San Ignacio.
The next stop on our list would be Agrigento, which has those.
Greek sites.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Valle dei Tempi, which is the Valley of the Temples.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the best preserved temples of the Magna Grecia.
Mm-hmm.
You should absolutely go there. Bring a lot of water because you will have a lot of walking ahead of you.
And so this is the one where I see pictures of it, and I think I'm looking at pictures of the Parthenon, for instance, but it's really, I'm in Sicily.
Exactly, that's it. It's. I think it's even better preserved than the Parthenon.
Mm-hmm. Well, it may not have had the Turks blow it up by using it as a place to store gunpowder. That it wasn't good for the Parthenon, as it turns out.
Yeah, I think the one that looks like the Parthenon is the Temple of Concordia.
Okay.
But there are also other temples, for example, one of Heracles or of Zeus, and they're all very well preserved. It's a picture perfect site. So if you like ruins, ancient ruins, if you like history, and if you like to take amazing pictures, this is the place to go.
Excellent. I like all of those things.
Yeah, me too. That's why I love this place.
Konnichiwa, I'm Yuki, a tour leader with Explore. Who knew that hidden among Tokyo's towering skyscrapers was a peaceful tea house surrounded by ancient trees and serene ponds? Actually, I knew. It was my mother's secret sanctuary. Not everyone knows about Tokyo's Hamarikyu Gardens. Arigatou gozaimasu. But you will if you explore. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel, explore.
Cool. Is there more that we want to do in Agrigento, or do we want to move on to Syracuse?
I would say let's move on, although Agrigento also has a nice old town and nice churches. I think there is a pretty big cathedral in the city center, but it's not that important, and I think we have enough on our list to just move on now. And the next town is Syracuse. Yeah, the most important site in Syracuse, or it's called in Italian Siracusa, is the Greek theater, also from the Magna Grecia. It's, I think, from like the 5th century BC. It got destroyed and was rebuilt afterwards by the Romans, I think. And it's really, really beautiful. And for me, it's one of the must-sees of the island.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I've seen pictures of it. It's quite lovely.
And I don't know about you, but I really like theaters in general. And I think you can also, have you ever done this? Like standing in the center of the...
Just test out the acoustics of the
exactly.
Greek theaters?
Yeah, I think you can really well do this there too. So you just stand in the center, and even if you just like drop a coin, you will hear it everywhere in every single angle of the theater. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fascinating. But for the rest, also Siracusa is, for my taste, not a place that you need to stay longer. Then you can move on to Catania if you like. But in my opinion, the old town of Catania is also not the most special thing. So I would just like to be based there and go to the Etna, for example.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out before we leave the Syracuse area is that the city itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site along with a nearby necropolis. There's a series of rock cutout chamber tombs that go back to 7th to 13th centuries BC, so really, really old in that area as well.
So that's probably the only site that is not right by the sea. As I said before, it's the biggest, largest volcano in Europe, which is still active. And you can go not right to the top, but you can get very, very close. There's a cable car that brings you up to, I think, almost 3,000 meters.
Mm-hmm.
We reached 3,300 meters.
Okay.
You could wander around, and it's this very special atmosphere when you're on top of a volcano, and you can see all over Sicily. At least it feels like you can see all over Sicily. Although it's a very big island, it's the biggest island actually in the whole Mediterranean. But it's an amazing view, and instead of taking the cable car, you can also have a hiking tour. And in winter, if you go there in late autumn or winter, you can actually ski on the Etna. So if that's something you like.
Okay. It seems strange skiing on a volcano, but I just didn't grow up close enough to one that I think it's quite common in many areas. Pacific Northwest, for instance, there's all sorts of skiing areas on volcanoes.
Okay, yeah, probably. I also didn't grow up in an area like this. I think it's a very special experience. I also never skied on the Etna. I did ski on Sicily, though, in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely an interesting experience when you can go for a swim in the sea in the morning and go ski in the afternoon, because it's like a 1 or 2 hours ride to the mountains. And you can do the same with the Etna. So there's a very, very nice beach town called Giardini Naxos.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a swim there and just then take the cable car and the Jeep up Mount Etna and then ski up there. If you're there in the right season, obviously.
Right.
It's like 3 or 4 hours from Palermo, so it was always too far for me to go there just to ski. But it's a really beautiful volcano and beautiful view and an absolutely fantastic experience.
Okay. Where to next?
The next is Taormina. It also has an ancient theater, and also the old town. The whole town is actually an old town. I don't think Taormina has a new town at all.
Okay.
You can get a room there, but I recommend staying in Catania, for example, and just do a day trip to Taormina.
Okay.
This is something you can combine. You can stay in Catania, go to the Etna on one day, and the next day you go to Taormina.
It sounds like you're recommending we rent a car and drive around the island.
This is the best way to explore the island, although public transportation has developed a lot and is pretty good. So you can take trains, you can take buses. There are buses connecting Palermo and Catania every 30 minutes, I think.
Well, and the odd thing, you mentioned public transportation. You talked about taking the train to the island, which sounds a little odd because there's not actually a bridge that goes to the island. So getting all of the train cars onto ferries, as I understand it, up in Messina, which is interesting to watch.
It's interesting to watch and it's interesting to do. And it's a lot of fun. I did that several times, actually, because if you've been to Europe, you may know Ryanair, which is our main low-cost airline. And there were very, very cheap flights from Frankfurt to where I've been living most of my life, to Rome. So I always took a Ryanair flight to Rome, and then from there I took a train. And I don't know if they still have that, but in former times they had a maximum price for train rides. So you could actually take a train from the very north of Italy down to Sicily, and you wouldn't pay more than taking the train for 200 kilometers, because that was just the max that they had. And I think this max was 59 euro or so pretty cheap. That's why I did it. It's a really beautiful train ride. So if you have a little bit more time, because it's, I think, a 16 or 14-hour train ride.
Okay.
So if you have this time to waste, like 2 more days of traveling, you could also combine it with a trip to Rome. In my opinion, it's absolutely worth it.
So you'd take the train all the way down to the toe of the boot and then get on a ferry, or they would put your car on a ferry, your train car that is, and come across to Sicily, a very short distance.
Yeah, I think the ferry ride is something between 20 minutes and 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That works very well and is a good way to see a little bit more of Italy in a very short time.
Okay. Excellent. Are we doing more while we're down in Catania?
No, I think if you go to see the Etna and Taormina, that's great.
Okay.
And then we have Piazza Armerina on our list, which is this villa. It's in the middle of nowhere, or it feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. And it's been this house of some very rich Romans, like 2,300 years back, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So this is a World Heritage Site best known for its mosaics, as I recall.
Exactly. And the house was full of mosaic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can imagine that floor, the walls, and I think even the ceilings, everything was mosaics. And they are very well preserved. And you can see, I think it's 13 rooms or so. You can see all the floors still, and some of the walls are also still preserved. Obviously, the ceilings are gone.
Right. Well, and I double-checked, and this dates back to the 300s AD, so about 1,700 years ago or so. Cool. What else?
And then we have Cefalù on our list, which is also a fishing village in Sicily.
Mm-hmm.
It's super famous for beach vacations, so I would recommend to use this to have a relaxing end of the trip and just spend it by the beach.
And this is the one that's spelled Cefalu.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like that's how you would pronounce it, but I forget sometimes you get that ch sound, like arrivederci.
It also has a very beautiful old town with a cathedral that is worth checking out. In the old town, there are those small and cute restaurants, all with sea view. So have some seafood there if you like seafood. I love seafood. I know I'm vegetarian and shouldn't eat seafood, but
pescatarian then. It's okay with me.
And if you like outdoor activities, you can also hike the Rocca di Cefalù, the Rock of Cefalù, it takes you like 30 minutes to go up. Since it can get hot in Sicily, it can be quite exhausting because it's pretty steep sometimes, but it's absolutely worth it. There are also some ruins on the Rocca di Cefalù and an amazing view on the beach of the sea. And depending on where you stand, also the old town and the cathedral. So you can get some amazing pics from up there.
Excellent. And then when we're wrapped up, then we drive back to Palermo.
Exactly.
Where we started.
Yeah.
Any other things we want to add to the itinerary before I throw in some of our wrap-up questions?
I think we covered pretty much everything.
Okay. Well, now you would go down there, my impression is, and see family. So you have some connection there besides just going down as a tourist. What is the best way for me as a tourist to connect with the Sicilian?
Probably the market.
Okay.
If you go to the markets and try to talk to the Sicilians about food, because most of the Sicilians are foodies, or Italians in general are very proud of their food. So if you try to ask them about the food and what it's made of, or if this is something typical for the region, they will be super proud and you will be their best friend in no time, and they will make you test everything and try everything and tell you everything about this special dish.
Excellent. And People think they know Italy. Sicily's a little different, so we're still in Italy. Where am I going to go that I'm going to be wondering to myself, am I really in Italy?
I think Palermo is the best example for that.
Okay.
If you're in the middle of Palermo and you close your eyes, this is the way it is for me. I get the feeling that I'm in an Arab country.
Ah, okay.
The noise of the cars and the people talking loudly, and you can smell the sea, you can smell all those senses from the dishes and stuff. It's different from Italy. It's really different.
Well, and we mentioned that there was a variety of influences. I guess we didn't name a lot of them. There is Arab influence here. There was the Norman influence. There were the Carthaginians, who were also Northern African influence here, as well as what we think of as more traditional Italian. So, yeah, a lot of different layers in the island. Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Sicily.
I have to think of swear words.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that and still keep it clean?
I will not tell you which swear words, but
Okay.
in general, I think Italians swear a lot, and Sicilians do that even more. And they have one special swear word that they use all the time, and they almost start every other sentence with this one swear word.
Okay. So we'll know that within our first day in
Probably.
Sicily, what word you're talking about. Okay. And then if you're standing at the most beautiful spot in Sicily, where are you standing? What are you looking at?
For me, it really is standing at the beach of Mondello and looking at the Monte Pellegrino mountain that looks like a dog. That for me
Okay.
is no, honestly, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world for me, in the whole world, not only in Sicily. I just love being there and watching this quiet dog just laying there is super calming for me.
Well, and the next time somebody who's listening to the show drinks a glass of Pellegrino, they will know that that means pilgrim. So it has been educational as well. Excellent. To wrap this up, if you had to summarize Sicily in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use? These are the questions I said would trip you up because you hadn't listened to the show before.
So one of the words that comes to my mind immediately is traditional.
Okay.
And another one is exotic.
Okay.
Although they may be contradictory, but I think that's exactly the reason. That
Yes. So let's go back to traditional. So traditional in what way? Where am I going to see that?
Sicilians love their traditions,
Okay.
and they're so proud of the traces of those peoples that have been there during all the last centuries and millennia.
So can you be more specific? A specific tradition, for instance, that I'm going to run into?
They are all very religious, and they love, for example, their patronate saint, Santa Rosalia. She is said to have saved the whole city from the plague. So it's a very important saint for the Italians, and they always, Parlemitani, and they always pray to her.
Okay. And I imagine that her saint feast day is a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. And they showcase the statue of Santa Rosalia and make like a
march through the streets carrying the statue on their shoulders. Yep.
and bringing her like from Old Town to her little chapel on Mount Pellegrino, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they're also very proud of their cuisine. This is also part of traditions, I would say.
And then your second one was exotic.
Yeah, because it's so different from the rest of Italy and from Europe in general.
Okay.
That's why for me Sicily is exotic, although it's so traditional and and although it's in Europe, but it's so different.
Excellent. And you've got 1 word left.
Fascinating.
Okay. Excellent. And we mentioned again, your name is Barbara Riedel from barbalicious.com. And Barbara, if we wanted to send people to the best post on barbalicious.com about Sicily, preferably one of the English posts, which post are we going to send people to?
I have written a blog post about Palermo with my favorite sites and the absolute must-sees.
Excellent. Excellent. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Barbara, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Sicily.
Thank you, Chris.
In news of the community, I heard from Kyle, who said about the episode we did on Route 66. Loved the podcast. There's a linear park in Towanda, Illinois that has Route 66 maps, which were designed, made, and installed by local students, and classic Burma shave signs. It's about 15 minutes south of Pontiac, and you don't need to get out of the car to enjoy. Some other highlights in central Illinois include Bloomington, Illinois. There's a new Route 66 visitor center, a history museum in downtown, and Evergreen Cemetery, where former vice president and failed presidential candidate Adelaide Stevenson and Dorothy Gage, niece of L. Frank Baum, and naming inspiration for The Wizard of Oz, are buried. Dorothy is memorialized with the statue of the fictional character. Further south at Funk's Grove, Austin mentioned the maple syrup, but didn't say anything about the world's classic Funk Prairie Home Gem Museum. Say that 10 times fast. They have incredibly rare specimens that you won't see anyplace else in the world, like a petrified dragonfly. Kyle, thanks so much. I knew this would be a popular episode. My favorite one, and I can't find it, but somebody sent me a picture of them standing in front of the whale that we talked about, so the blue whale of Catoosa, just today, and they had just listened to the episode a couple weeks ago. So fun that timing worked out, and I'm looking for that post, but I can't find it. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.